torrential rains, billions in infrastructure spending, and a corruption scandal so massive it has shaken the very foundations of the Marcos Jr. administration. What began as routine flooding across the Philippines has now blown open into one of the biggest graft crises the country has seen in decades, triggering resignations, mass protests, market turmoil, and deep political fractures within the president's own circle. Tonight, we break down how a corruption scandal over flood control projects spiraled into a national reckoning, and what it means for the Philippines going forward. Allegations of widespread government corruption in flood control projects worth billions of dollars forced out 2 senior cabinet ministers on November 17th. The resignations come as pressure mounts on President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. to implement sweeping reforms and to show he's serious about tackling a problem that has plagued the Philippines for generations. The outrage exploded after it emerged that large portions of government-funded flood infrastructure were defective, substandard, or in many cases, never built at all, despite public funds having been released. Public Works Secretary Vince Dyson described the pattern of corruption as unprecedented, warning that losses from the scheme may exceed 1 trillion pesos. If confirmed, the scale would be larger than the estimated $10 billion in ill-gotten wealth allegedly amassed by the late Ferdinand Marcos, father of the current president, during his dictatorship in the 1970s and 80s. This comparison hit Filipinos hard, a reminder of a painful history the nation has struggled to move past. Since taking office in 2022, the Marcos Jr. administration rolled out 9,855 flood control projects nationwide, totaling 546 billion pesos, or roughly $9.2 billion. These projects were meant to reinforce the Philippines, one of the world's most disaster-prone countries, against typhoons and dangerous flooding. But as persistent floods devastated communities this year, citizens took to social media demanding answers. And investigations soon revealed a disturbing picture. Many projects were built below standard, and others had no physical trace, even though the funds had vanished. Testimony before the Senate in September suggested widespread collusion between government engineers, politicians, and private contractors. A former government engineer claimed that at least 25% of each project's budget was routinely siphoned off as kickbacks. To compensate for this massive skim, contractors allegedly used cheaper materials, cut corners, and inflated construction costs on paper, turning critical flood defences into weak, unsafe structures. For millions of Filipinos living in low-lying areas, this wasn't just corruption, it was a direct threat to life. At least 67 lawmakers in the House of Representatives were allegedly contractors for their own government-funded projects, according to Senator Panfilo Lacson. Among the most high-profile names is House Speaker Martin Romualdez, a cousin and close ally of President Marcos Jr. Romualdez has stepped down from his position, but insists he has done nothing wrong. In the Senate, former Chamber Leader Francis Escudero was removed after admitting a private contractor had donated to his 2022 campaign. He denies helping the contractor win public projects. These revelations have triggered a political earthquake, one that could reshape alliances across the Philippine government. Public anger soon spilled onto the streets. After weeks of smaller demonstrations, tens of thousands of Filipinos held nationwide protests on September 21st, calling for accountability and demanding the resignation of implicated officials. While most rallies were peaceful, Manila witnessed moments of chaos, including container vans being torched and clashes where rocks and Molotov cocktails were hurled at police. Over 200 people were arrested, including minors. Social media became a battleground too, with citizens targeting families of contractors and politicians who flaunted their wealth online. The scandal has hammered the Philippine financial markets. The peso plunged to a record low against the US dollar in October, and the benchmark stock index tumbled about 12% this year, even as other regional markets rallied. Economic growth slowed to a 4-year low in the third quarter, with analysts warning that the scandal has undermined confidence and disrupted government spending. President Marcos Jr. first acknowledged the scandal in his State of the Nation address in July, calling many flood control programs money-making schemes. Since then, he has personally inspected questionable projects, particularly in Bulacan, the province with the highest number of problematic contracts. The government has dismissed 4 public works officials, suspended 16 others, and filed charges against state employees and private contractors. Marcos Jr. has created an independent commission to investigate the last 10 years of flood control spending. And upon a request from the Anti-Money Laundering Council, a court has frozen hundreds of bank accounts linked to the scandal. On November 17th, 2 key cabinet allies, Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin and Budget Secretary Amina Pangandaman, resigned, denying wrongdoing but saying their departure would help the administration address the crisis. Marcos Jr. has vowed that no one will be spared, not even his relatives. The Philippines stands at a critical crossroads. Analysts say Marcos Jr.'s ability or failure to root out corruption may define his presidency. If he delivers, he could rebuild trust and stabilize the political environment. If not, public anger may intensify, emboldening the opposition, including Vice President Sara Duterte, who has criticized the administration's slow response. Economically, stricter oversight of public works may delay government spending. Union Bank's chief economist warns that a 10% reduction in disbursements over 1 quarter could shave 0.13 percentage points off GDP growth. A multi-billion peso scandal, political resignations, mass protests, and a public demanding real change. The Philippines now faces not only the challenge of rebuilding broken flood defenses, but also the challenge of rebuilding public trust in its institutions. As investigations continue, the question remains: will this be the moment the Philippines breaks its cycle of corruption, or will history repeat itself once again?